Getting 100% in Warhammer free. Welcome. Are you a nerd? Do you have unlimited free time? And do you enjoy the Chad Otis pastime of moving little armies around the map as you conquer the world? If yes, congratulations, you're in the right place. Today we're going to talk about how I achieved 100% on Total War Warhammer free, and how you can do the same. The little part at the start isn't a joke though. Getting this will at least take about 500 to 600 hours. Reasonably from start to finish. Like anything in life, getting 80% of the game will be relatively fun. That last 10-20% can be quite the struggle though, so be warned. Do you see that big hour count next to my 100%? Don't focus on that too much. That's me playing the same faction over and over again because I enjoy it so much. If you know what a Karl Franz is, you definitely know what I'm talking about. That's the thing with this game. There's actually such a wide amount of variety that there will be factions you will love to death, and there will be factions you couldn't absolutely be paid to play. But I hope you enjoy. For the sake of this video, I'm assuming that you're familiar with Warhammer Free and how it works. But if you've never touched a game before, then I recommend waiting for a sale and getting the Warhammer Trilogy Bundle pack. It allows you to play Warhammer Free and own Warhammer 2 and Warhammer 1. And that's a great starting point. They effectively act as DLC for Warhammer Free, and you can play all of their content inside of Warhammer Free. That's the way I do it. Buying this will allow you to play most of the factions in the game and complete most of the achievements. You will need to buy a few more, but we'll get there when we get there. Warhammer Free can be a very expensive game. There's quite a lot of DLC, and not all of it is necessary. As I go through this video, I will explain which ones are necessary to 100%, which ones will make your life a lot easier, and which ones are absolute fluff or not necessary. There's quite a lot of decision. Warhammer Free is a strategy game first, but it is also a games as a service. They will absolutely sell you powerful stuff as a DLC, but it is not necessarily necessary. If you enjoy a specific faction as you play through this game and you want to get their DLC, go for it. But if you just want to dip your toes, play once, beat them on very hard, and never touch that faction again, as has happened with me with a few factions, you don't need to buy all their DLC. It is absolutely not necessary, and I would recommend not doing so. Just buy the DLC for the factions you enjoy, and that's about it. There are 3 sets of achievements that I will not go over for the course of this guide. Those would be those that are simply play the game normally, such as do 5 ambushes. There will be a set of achievements where you hire a specific unit, usually their main centerpiece, for the 6 starting Warhammer Free factions. That can be achieved by getting their Regiment of Renown, and I'm not going to go over it every single time. Finally, there will be the achievements called just engage with your basic faction mechanic. Once again, I won't go over it for the sake of simplicity. This video is long enough already. There are 3 mods I would recommend. Actually, auto-resolve all quest battles is essential, especially for Order factions that will have access to Gotrek and Felix. It is a really annoying fight, and you don't want to be doing it 6 times. You can also apply that for Other Lords. You don't necessarily have to, but it's a good option to have. Recruit defeated Legendary Lords, as the name implies, gives you access to the Lords that have died on halfway across the map when you never met them. Is it balanced? I personally believe so, because the AI also has access to their Lords. But at the same time, if you feel like it's particularly too cheesy for you, just don't take it. I personally enjoy playing with all of the Pokemon, but if you don't want to, that's fine. And finally, Community Bug Fix mod. The game is a really big game in scope, but it is also incredibly messy. If you've never tried Community Bug Fix mod, it helps. I can't say that it's a guarantee, but it certainly helps, and that's all you can ask for. Finally, here's a mod that I didn't use myself, but I might recommend. Playing through these campaigns, I've realized that a lot of the victory conditions for various factions is not very well thought out. Most of them amount to capture 60 settlements. If you want something with a little bit more flavor, I recommend Victory Conditions Overhaul. Now, whether you feel like this is cheating or not is entirely up to you. At the end of the day, this is not a real test. This is something you're doing to challenge yourself and to give yourself an objective in this game. If you feel like it's cheating, don't take it. If you, like me, feel like maybe for some of these campaigns it would have been good, then take it. That's a personal decision. What the mod allows you to do is give you 3 different paths for a long victory, and also allow you to have maybe a bit more of a thematic game. If you enjoy that, try it. If you don't enjoy that and you just want to beat the base game, I completely understand. Now, let's get to the main topic. First off, do the tutorial. If like me, you've played hundreds of hours of the game and have never once touched the tutorial, now is a good time to get it out of the way. Just play through it, and before you complete it, make sure that you've done all of the achievements you can find. You likely won't want to do it twice. Make sure not to use the auto-resolve quest battles mod in that game mode, or you will soft lock yourself inside the tutorial. Ask me how I know. As you complete more and more achievements, you will notice that there are 11 achievements listed as trials. This is a part of the game that most people don't know about. If you go into the Mirrors of Madness section of the home screen, you will find the Trials of Fate. These are a little side gimmick game mode which has 11 achievements and are essentially a survival game. You cannot win these and simply have to outlast the enemy and score points while doing it by killing people. My recommendation is take your starting force and put them on a very small tight formation on the point. Make sure to have your cavalry to their flanks and don't let them wander off too far as they will die. This is a swarm game mode, and your main weapons are your magic, which is unlimited, so make sure to use it liberally, and your special abilities. Let's start with the magic. The main detail to use is apply it on blobs and be very careful not to blow up your own men. Ask me how I know. The second part is the lord abilities you can use, the most important of which being the tornado effect. This is what wins you the game. You can get rid of swarms and swarms of infantry, and by keeping a very tight formation, you force the enemy AI to blob up on you, then you can hoover them up and get rid of them. You simply need to outlast them. Give your infantries a break, these are Tzeentch wars and they will have a shield, and you can hold. The fourth one is the hardest, and I would recommend do it last. The more units you kill and the longer you live, the better score you will have, and that's how you win this game. It is miserable, but it does unlock a few items for Daemon Prince. I ended up beating the Daemon Prince before doing that, so I'm not sure if it's beneficial. Good luck. Just grind it out. As you figure it out, it'll become easier. And once again, the fourth one is the hardest. Be careful. A little note before we begin. While I'll be breaking down individually which DLCs you should and should not get for factions, there is one DLC that applies to 6 factions which I'm going to go over now. The Champions of Chaos DLC is something that will make your life significantly easier for Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, Slaanesh, Demons of Chaos, and Warriors of Chaos. It is not necessary. I have achieved the game without ever getting that DLC, but it will make your life significantly easier, and in terms of how much benefit you get for the amount of factions, it is by far the best value. That is a personal decision, but I think it might be worth it to save you a lot of time. Do not buy the Beastmen DLC. Get Torox instead. It gives you everything the Beastmen DLC gives you, plus extra units and a Regiment of Renown. If you end up really liking the goats, then you can get the DLC later, but remember, you will be paying for literally just a few lords. As for Torox's campaign, you get bulls, lots of bulls, and do exactly what it says on the tin. Rampage, move around, and rampage some more. Pick your fights and pick your enemies. Jump their squishy missile units. You are a melee-centered faction, so close the distance fast. Do not let them shoot at you. So cut that out immediately. If you see the Sword of Cain has been picked up by an elf, go over to them and kill them, and take it for yourself. You have literally 0 downsides for using it, only upsides. Remember to refill his movement, and if the game says you're going to lose units, I would recommend fighting manually to avoid that, and keep your momentum going. Torox can and will solo armies once he is properly built up, and you can easily win the game from that stage. Finally, as you play, make sure to read this fine piece of literature. Oui oui baguette. I hope you like baguettes. Prepare your white flags for when you ever come on an offensive siege. Avoid fighting them entirely where possible, to the point that I even recommend encircling the city and letting them fight you, if possible. You are a cavalry faction, and fighting walls is against your feng shui. I personally played Rapunzel and had a decent time with her, as the factions around her are relatively easy for her to steamroll. Avoid ever touching Alberic. If you're playing as Luen or the caster, make sure to bully Skaven, as you are a decent counter to Ikit's gimmicks, but expect to get nuked the first time you play against him. Bretonnia is a micro-heavy faction, and will require a good understanding of the game and your ability to multitask. I would recommend doing it quite late into your playthrough, because they require you to cycle charge in order to use them effectively. If you ever have the unfortunate situation when you need to take a city, but don't have your little white flags around to surrender, I recommend an artillery piece. Make a breach in the wall and rush all of your cavalry in while capturing the points. Let them come to you while you run around their city. That will break up their formations and they will be off the wall where you can actually fight them. Remember, if their gun units are on the wall and you can't get up there, they will hurt you a lot. Glorious demonic capitalism. This is where we run into the first DLC you actually must buy to 100% the game. The good news is that it is actually fully worth it, in my opinion. It's a fun faction with unique mechanics and some of their best designs, but they are also somewhat more complex than other factions. I will be giving a full guide in the future to this faction and many others, but for now, here's what you need to know. Break down your provinces on a 3-to-1 ratio between factory and mines. While you are incredibly strong middle to late game, you have a slow start, so you need to get your legendary hero early to get goblin stacks that can actually hold up well. Then you will want armies composed of a few good gun or artillery units mixed in with a sea of green, unpaid volunteers. Use lords and heroes to stop them breaking too early, while your real units do the hard work and make sure you get your magic as soon as possible, as it is quite powerful. I personally started with Drazorf as he has the best late game potential, but a bit of a rough start. But in case can be made for all 3 lords, there is no specific standout. If you have control issues, make sure that there aren't too many workers in a settlement, and if needs be, dispose of them to keep the population in line. Late game, you are an unstoppable war machine with endless bags of really powerful tricks. You just have to get there. Once you have beaten a late game Chaos Dwarf campaign, you can officially state Excel certified on your CV, so great news. Unspeakably garbage. First of all, good luck. Okay, jokes aside, it's miserable. It's one of the first campaigns when you can lose against your starting enemy, and it doesn't get better from there. You will barely be able to afford 1 army, so make sure it is a Khorne stack. Use Khorne infantry, same as you would with Scarbrand, and you can have a decent auto-resolve. Your starting province, once you have dealt with your few enemies, and you've invested the points into diplomacy, will be surrounded with friends and face very little danger. From then, you can start raiding south with everyone else in Chaos. Even if you do end up losing, which is likely, your lord is terrible and your units are not that good, you will be able to recover and just launch again. It is a grind, it is miserable, do it last. No one has fun, especially not at very hard. For the Daemon Prince faction, you will run into 2 conflicting achievements. Godly Might Given, which asks you to ascend to the undivided path, and the Most Constant Votary, which will ask you to ascend to a specific god's path. My advice, and this is the only time in the game I will recommend you to save cheese, is to save before doing it, ascend to the undivided path, and then further down ascend to a chosen god path. You categorically do not want to play his campaign twice in order to get both. This is the only time I will recommend you to cheese. It's not a phase, Mom. It's a lifestyle. Here's the thing about Dark Elves. They are very powerful. I just find them entirely forgettable. A lot of their lords don't have particularly unique mechanics, so just pick Malekith. You start in a corner of the map, which makes it easy to defend once you've conquered it, and you are surrounded by people who you can be friends with. It's generally an easy campaign, but I just find it forgettable. The good news is you don't need any DLC for it, because you will usually get it as a consequence of getting other factions DLC, such as with High Elves later. The other benefit you have is that your early game unit is viable all the way into the late game. Shades, with their long range armor piercing damage, are effective at pretty much any stage of the game, and thus you should have a relatively easy time conquering them. If you own the DLC, engage with the DLC mechanics and units, but I would simply recommend taking Malekith. It's what I did. Literal short kings in the best way possible. Good news, you're about to play one of the best campaigns in the game, regardless of which lord you pick. After years of being terrible, Dwarfs are very fun right now. Now, Dwarfs have 2 DLCs, and neither of which are necessary to be powerful. If you want to have a fun time, Malachai's DLC definitely offers a lot more than the other one, and I would consider Belegar's DLC to be highly optional. But once again, I want to reiterate, you don't have to buy either of these DLCs to have a good time with Dwarfs. You can play with Forgrim Iron Fist and have a fun time with Slayers. It's a very fun campaign, but it can struggle a little bit at times. You can play as Malachai if you have the DLC. It is a very broken campaign, balanced out by the fact that it is a very rough starting position where you are surrounded by enemies on all sides. My personal recommendation is to play the White Dwarf. His personal specialty are Iron Drakes, which he boosts to all hell. And you combine that with the fact that, as I've mentioned, auto-resolve favors missile units with high armor, so you're going to have a great time. He also starts in the corner of the map once you've conquered it, and thus can have an easy time expanding safely without having to protect your rear. My recommendations is to then confederate a Dwarf Lord who has a good vision on the Empire, preferably Iron Grim, and that way you will have a big diplomacy boost with all of the surrounding factions. You can have a very good time. Grombrindle himself offers a lot of benefits not only to himself and is deceptively powerful because he applies all of the buffs from his blue skill to all of your other lords. So the more power you get, the more armies you have, the faster you can move and you can quickly storm the map, as that is essential. Dwarfs require momentum, surprisingly. You want to keep fighting, which will give you your grudges, and also, importantly, will help you win very hard difficulty. It is a very fun campaign, regardless of who you pick, and you enjoy your time with Dwarfs. Do not buy Belegar unless you really enjoy the gameplay, as his units are not very necessary, and the campaign itself is miserable. Something something dragon, something something discount emperor. Grand Cathay is the first one of the base Warhammer free factions. These one will have a few more achievements than the others, and I would say that most of them are very easy to do. Even the one where you have to build a building in a specific location is very easy to find. The good news is, and this is the only time I will bring it up, your mission where you have to send a caravan is very easy to do, but make sure to send it to Sylvania and get the Von Karstein blade, as that will give regeneration to your dragon hero. Now, the DLC from Shadows of Change is absolutely not mandatory. It doesn't offer a lot that your faction already doesn't do at a base level. And here's a little trick for you. If you confederate a minor or even major Cathay faction and they have DLC units, you can keep them. So try to get a Gatemaster Lord, and then you'll be able to use it without owning the DLC. And those are pretty good because they do boost your Jade Warriors and your Jade Warrior crossbowmen. Now, the important thing to recommend is I recommend Miao Yin. Cathay, in general, is pretty simple. It is just infantry and missile units in a very traditional formation, and you sometimes want artillery. You'll want to use your Jade Warriors, as I said earlier, as while they do have better units such as the Celestial units, the amount of cost per army is not worth it. Focus on getting quantity over individual quality. If you have 3 armies of Jade Warriors for 1 army of Celestial, it'll be better. Now, Zhao Ming is a good option, but I preferably recommend Miao Ying as she does boost the crossbows. In her specific stack, use Celestial Crossbowmen, and you can auto-resolve most things, having that combination of armor and auto-resolve, as I've mentioned before. If anything is particularly tough and you can't auto-resolve it, just use your dragon to hold off enemies that get too close, do a checkerboard formation, and just go wild. You'll have a great time. Ideally, try to confederate Satang, even if you don't own the DLC, and you'll have a good time with that too. But be careful. Terracottas are not as powerful as they used to be. Wow! This is one of those factions that absolutely do not click with me. I am a 150 IQ autist Giga Chad who likes to build his empire, control his economy, and pilot his little armies. Unga Bunga is not a playstyle that appeals to me at all. It doesn't work. I can tell that they're strong, and I played them terribly. I personally won this through Grimgor, and I would recommend stacking Black Orc boss heroes with him, but I just couldn't bring myself to enjoy it. It really didn't click with me. Just keep on the move, keep attacking, declare war on strong enemies, and you will win. Just expect to have to do a few auto-resolve battles, as the auto-resolve doesn't weigh heroes very well. And it's up there for me in terms with Daniel. If you have Grom and you know how to play him, I could also recommend Grom. But keep in mind that you are surrounded by people that hate you and you are far away from your friends. And you really should have a good understanding of his mechanics to use them properly. But with Grimgor, it can be used by anyone really simply. Signature look of superiority. Here's the thing with High Elves. You can win the entire campaign with the Tyrian faction of using the powers of Spears and Archer. Having the Queen and the Crone DLC does make that easier though, as it is very much one of those DLCs where you can buy raw power. Sisters of Avalorn and Handmaiden heroes will make your life a lot easier if you go that path, but you absolutely do not need to. Here's the major advantage of the High Elves. The basic infantry is usable at nearly all stages of the game, so it allows you to print out those armies. The more armies you have, the more map you can spread onto, and you can win quicker. Make sure to trade with people around you and confederate minor factions. Elves are highly dependent on trade. So you need to have a vision on the Empire, you need to have vision on anyone who will trade with you, and you get that money flowing. It will help you fund your armies. Categorically, and I will repeat this, do not start as techless. Maybe that changes after December the 4th, but right now, you are far away from all your friends, you have very little people to trade with, and you are right next to Kairos Fateweaver. You will not have a good time. Once again, in the future, they might make it more powerful, but as things stand right now, do not do that. And I would still highly recommend starting with Tyrion. The other DLCs are not necessary. While the Elfarion DLC does give you Silver and Guard, which are better than your average spear unit, they are not worth getting the full DLC to get, and the rest of the units are not so good. Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Skull Throne. Here's the thing. When I played as Khorne, Omens of Destruction had not come out yet. I did it without any of the DLC, and I would say you don't need it, especially with the recent buffs to Khorne. But Arbald might be better for one main reason. The achievement to build the Acadian Paradox is in a settlement north of Cathay where Village starts. It is quite a trip for Scarbrand. Ask me how I know. For Khorne, actively do not engage with his demonic infantry. They are surprisingly weak for the demonic forces of the God of War. Uses human forces as they are much better, especially in auto-resolve, but also on the field. They will not break, they have high armor, everything you want. Momentum is essential. All Free Lords are overpowered in their own right, but you need to get them to that point. Focus on burning things down on the world, just rush. Economy and empire building are not for you. Just focus on kill, 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 exactly as it says on the tin. Most of the Khorne specific achievements are easily doable in the campaign. Use your dog hero to shut down enemy mages who might cause you some trouble, as you don't really have magic. Once again, the Omens of Destruction DLC is absolutely not necessary, and if you have the Champions of Chaos DLC like I recommended, you'll have an even easier time than I did. But he is a fun, powerful faction. You just have to get used to his movement and do not try to build an economy with him. That is not what you're here for. Yup, the Vayumat. Kislev is another one of those factions where I would say that their DLC in Shadows of Change is absolutely not necessary. While the Akshina Ambushers are strong, they are not essential, and the rest of their roster doesn't add anything specific. There is an important detail with Kislev. One of the achievements, the Battle of Boka, cannot be completed in Immortal Empires. You will need to do it on the Realms of Chaos campaign and trigger it by controlling Prague, Erengrad, and Kislev itself. This is relatively easy, and then you will begin a quest battle. If you vibe with this particular campaign, then I recommend also completing the Enter the Daemon Prince realms and defeat them missions. There are 4 of them, one for their respective Chaos God. Remember, you don't have to do this on hard. Then you can just do the campaign again on Immortal Empires, focusing on the win on very hard. To your south are a variety of allies. Don't let them get wiped out by northern threats getting past you. Act like the bulwark you are meant to be, and try to hold the various natural choke points on the map with strong armies. Engage with your ice magic to slow units down while you shoot them. Expect to have a relatively decent auto-resolve thanks to your high armor and missile units. The best way to think of Kislev is sturdy. Your missiles won't break easily, and neither will your artillery. So just abuse what you can, use a checkerboard formation where the units behind are able to shoot when your front lines get locked into melee, and abuse your new strong wizards. The choice I used was Consultant and his buff Patriarch heroes. They can rely on his buffs and also heal each other, and makes for a very competent hero doomstack. But Katarina and her buff spellcasters seem to be a very good option thanks to the update. I will admit that I have not played them since their update, but it all seems to be all upsides, so you should have a good time. You could also try Boris Ursus, but you are running as your first enemy being Archeon, and that can be a little rough, so be careful with that. Here's the thing with Lizardmen. You can win the game with basic Saurus infantry, and the good news is you will probably have a lot of their DLC as a consequences of getting it for other people. For example, the Torox DLC gives you access to Oxyotl. Now, my recommendation is that Oxyotl himself can be quite more complicated than the basic Saurus infantry. If you just want to have an easy game, you take Krokar, you start in a relatively safe, easily defendable position, and you just spam Saurus and have a good time. You'll have access to Croak later, and then you win the game. Now, you might be asking, Max, why don't you pick Gorok? He can solo armies. And yes, while that is true, you will have to do it in manual battle. And if you've never played Gorok in a manual battle, he will absolutely kill whatever army he's fighting. But you will be waiting 20 minutes for him to do it. His defense is incredibly strong, but his melee just is not there. So be careful with that. If you're comfortable using Oxyotl, you'll have a very good time with him. I hear he's quite fun. I have never tried him personally. Do not engage with some of the other lords, such as Tic-Tac-Toe or Tuhenoin. You'll have a rougher time. This one is not a joke. Go watch the show Vikings. It's really good. By the time you listen to this, Tides of Torment will either have been released or about to be released. So do not get the Norsca DLC. Do ignore it entirely. Get Sail the Faithless, enjoy whatever mechanics he comes out with, and win the game with him. Do not get, unless you particularly enjoy Norsca and they've been particularly reworked, do not bother getting the original Norsca DLC. At the time of writing, they are a really miserable, underpowered faction. Maybe that changes, but I would still recommend just getting Sail, seeing if you enjoy it, and then maybe getting the rest later. That is my recommendation at the time of writing. 2020, but a hell of a lot worse. Nurgle has 3 advantages. He is the most traditional of the 4 Chaos Monogod factions. He cares about his economy, establishing land, and building up armies. And Kugath actually cares about basic units, so no real need for DLC unless you want to. Tamarkon is a lot of fun, and people's favorite lord, so if you want him, it's not a bad choice. Thirdly, unlike the other 3, you don't have to build a unique building. You simply have to use all of your plague symptoms, and it's really easy to just grind out to get the achievement. As for Kugath, he starts in a pretty safe starting location, though it's about to get a little rougher with Aislinn. For now, just secure your starting settlement. It's very safe, and then expand outwards in whatever direction you pick. Kugath favors Nurglings, but it locks you into a lot of manual fights. Otherwise, you can use Nurgle's wide range of other units. Keep in mind that the lore of Nurgle allows for map-wide healing passive on top of his very powerful healing spells, so make good use of your unit's big health pools. Beyond that, this is the simplest of the 4 demons. Weaponizing your BMI for world conquest. I beat Ogres before the Omens of Destruction DLC. I used Scrag to do it after having a really terrible time with Greasus, and honestly Scrag is quite powerful. But if you just want to buy one DLC, my recommendation is to get the Ogre DLC from Omens of Destruction, so you have access to more units. And you should have access to a pretty powerful campaign. Make sure to do all of the various steps you need to do for your quest, and build the building you need to build. And that is the complication. You start quite far from when you need to build that building, and it might be worth it to actually get Greasus to do it. But if you're motivated, just walk your legendary lord across the map and go build it, same as I did with Khorne. It will be slow, but it is better than saving you a few bucks, but that's a personal decision at the end of the day. All in all, as recommendation for Ogres, use your BMI to push enemies out of the way, charge in, keep charging, jump their missile units that will hurt you, and have a good time. Omens of Destruction Ogres are very powerful, but I can't give any specific advice as I've never actually played them.
Icket has the biggest brain of all rats.
Skaven are one of my personal favorite factions in the game, both from a gameplay and lore perspective. But they are absolutely another one of those factions that need their DLC to be amazing. If you own the Twisted in the Twilight DLC in order to play Wood Elves, Then you have the option to play as Fraught. You start in Kislev with very strong legendary lord and a faction that can absolutely go wild. But personally, big monsters isn't for me. If that isn't for you either, and you want my personal recommendation, then the Prophet and the Warlock DLC is for you. Using the power of nukes, machine gun, and sniper rifles, you can conquer the world. You start in a very safe location that is difficult to expand from. To the east and north are unkillable goats and French peasants. I'm not sure which is worse, but you're signing yourself for a tough fight that way. Clear the Beastmen and take control of Spain, but go no further. Fortify it and let the French come to you. For the same reason sieges are painful when you're playing as Bretonnia, they will be terrible for the AI as well. Remember, if the horse make it to your gun lines, you're gonna have a really hard time. Instead, go east. Kill dwarfs and ogres and have a great time, then later expand into the Empire. A tip to playing Ikit Claw. By abandoning Skaven Blight on turn 1, and then repopulating it with food on turn 2, you can have a tier-free city immediately. That will give you a head start for getting all of your best infantry and artillery into the late game. Assuming you have already done Wood Elves, or you're simply not interested in playing them right now, and you don't want to play Skaven with any DLC, then I recommend Queek Headtaker. He plays a very traditional kind of formation, infantry, then artillery to protect your artillery, and things like that. He can actually be a very powerful lord in his own right and can solo armies in the late game. But in general, it is still a fun campaign and he is a very powerful lord. You just will be missing some of the best parts of Skaven. Horny, fast. I played Nakari before their update. Everything I say might be completely out of date in a few weeks, and I certainly hope so, because I found the campaign to be absolutely miserable. An important note about using Slaanesh, especially if you do not have the Champions of Chaos DLC, is that your units have no armor, so your auto-resolve hates you. Secondly, even in manual battles, that assessment is not entirely unjustified, unlike something like Skaven, which are actually good in manual battles. Use your human units as an anvil, while your demonic units flank and take out the missile units. Then come back as the hammer. This is not very effective, because base Slaanesh units do not have a lot of armor, and this is very heavy micro-intensive. Remember, I did this without the Champions of Chaos DLC. Assuming you have that DLC, you will have access to human infantry with high armor that will make for much better anvils. My only recommendation, if you like me didn't get the DLC, is to make good use of your monsters, as things like Fiends of Slaanesh are your only good units in the whole roster. But this is why I recommend an alternative path. Your best option is to wait for one of the Elves to take the Sword of Cain. Once they have done that, strap it onto Nakari and go wild. You physically cannot lose. Now, you will run into a situation where every battle becomes a slog as you wait to kill everyone. And this is why I recommend your skill, Phantasmagoria, which will apply an AoE morale debuff to all of the units when they have blobbed up around you, as the AI tends to do when you provide them with a 1-unit doom stack. Then, that saves you a lot of micro. Apart from that, you need to take Nakari's free armies that he produces and put them into your settlements as you go along, and they will act as increased garrisons. This will allow you to hopefully not have to fight any fights manually. The Pandemonium cannot be built on the Immortal Empires map, unfortunately. This is one of those achievements that you will have to go to the Realms of Chaos for. My recommendation is to do that in the Realms of Chaos on easy, and don't bother trying to do it on very hard, as you don't have the Sword of Cain, and it will be a very rough campaign if you try to do that. I didn't do it, and I don't recommend you do it.
Summon the Elector Counts!
For Empire, if you own 0 DLC, and you just want to get it over and done with, I would recommend Baltasar Gelt. You will have to do a lot of manual battles, but he starts in a very safe location, and you can wizard spam to your heart's content, and you will have 0 challenge. He is by far one of the most overpowered campaigns in the game, and you do not need any DLC to unlock him. Now, here's the thing. Assuming you don't want to do that, you are left with Karl Franz or Elspeth. The Empire has free DLCs, and the only one that I would even vaguely recommend getting, unless you particularly enjoy the Empire, is the Elspeth DLC that brings a lot to the table. The other 2 can easily be classed as very optional. Now, the advice that I'm about to give applies to either Karl's campaign or Elspeth's campaign, as they start in a very similar starting location. One of the most important things you can do as Empire in any campaign you play is look for a Lord with Noble. Because some of the best toys the Empire has access to are very late in their build tree. Early game, you will be using archers and you will be using spearmen. So the sooner you can get to things like steam tanks, the more fun you'll be having. And that applies regardless of campaign. You will want to deal with all of the enemies inside the Empire territory. So that means Festus and that means Vlad. I recommend taking them on individually. Do not try to double fight them, as they are quite strong. Especially for Vlad, I highly recommend auto-resolving him, regardless of which faction you're playing, as he can be quite tough to deal with in a manual battle. But if you don't have that luxury for whatever reason, try to kill his army and then bog him down in melee infantry. You do not want to fight him. Here's the thing you have to keep in mind with the Empire. Your infantry is terrible. It exists solely to keep enemies away from your better stuff, that being your guns and that being your artillery. Do not expect your infantry to hold and do not invest in high tier infantry. Your spearmen with shields are your best infantry at any stage of the game because they exist to hold the line and they can do that job very well as they have the best melee defense. You categorically do not want to invest in great swords unless it is Karl Frank's army and you're using Carroburgs. Invest in your guns and invest in your artillery, and that is the secret to an Empire victory. Both of the lords, be it Karl or Elspeth, get a lot of victories for uniting the Empire. Now, if someone like a dwarf gets a piece of the Empire, do not declare war on them. Instead, get another piece of land they might want and try to do a trade. You will have to slaughter that slight settlement of Wood Elves north of you, as unfortunately, them owning that piece of land will stop you from 100%ing the Empire. Once you have completed the Empire, expect many attacks from the north, but generally, you'll be in a very strong position by then, and you can easily win the game.
Settra the Imperishable, the great king of Nahekara, king of kings, opener of the ways, wielder of the divine flame, punisher of nomads, the great unifier, commander of the Golden Legion, sacred appearance, bringer of light, father of hawks, builder of cities, and on we go.
I have great news, people. I played Tomb Kings before their rework when they were actually a little bit outdated. I had used Arkhan the Black to take advantage of the fact that he starts with a second army. But you're listening to this in the present, and they've been massively updated. It is a very fun, powerful DLC. You will have a good time. They have veered a little bit into overpowered at times, but they've been nerfed down since then. My recommendation is start as Khalida or Settra or pretty much anyone you want. I would avoid Grand Hierophant Kotep, as he starts in a bit of a rough location far away from his friends, and in order to win the game, you will need to move back all the way from North America to Africa. It's quite the trip, right? But start with Settra, conquer the world, abuse his chariots, make sure to get one hero to buff up his chariots with Devastating Flanker, and you will have a good time. If you're playing Khalida, make sure to use her archer spam, as you can get to very good results with that. All in all, you can print out armies very easily, and you can fill them with very strong, powerful units. Make sure to build out your cities to expand your caps, and there is not much to be added here. It is a strong, powerful faction right now, and it is personally worth that investment. It is one of those factions you will have to pay for, though, separately, but it's a lot on offer for the amount of money you're paying.
Gentlemen, and the free ladies in my audience, may I present the blue chicken. For Tzeentch, my advice is to spam the pink horrors with a few blue horrors as front line. Don't bother investing in the insulted pink horrors. They take much longer to recruit for better melee stats and a no ranged attack difference. If the enemy is in melee range with you, it is already too late. The aim of the game is to kill them before they get there. You can use Kairos as a distraction, but do not expect him to melee anything like the other demon lords. He is a big nerd and can't find his way out of a wet bag. If you're truly having a miserable time with him, which I fully understand, then consider getting the Shadows of Change DLC. It will give you some solid frontline infantry, which your faction desperately needs, and if you really can't win, then you can play the Changeling D campaign, which is effectively impossible to lose. For the Symposium of Change achievement, it is found on the north side of the map on the other side of the world. Just take a long hike north, in a settlement called the Crystal Spires. What if Pirates of the Caribbean's won, but it's a whole faction? Vampire Coast is a weird faction for me. In theory, it has everything I enjoy. A lot of guns, a lot of missiles, and just generally that kind of playstyle. But in actual execution, I find them to be a bit dry. This is one of those factions that I would leave at last, and one of those DLCs that I will only buy at last minutes if you're 100% sure you're about to complete this game. I personally have never touched them again afterward. But if you need to 100% the game, you have to buy them, unfortunately. Just be reminded that on very hard, your Queen Bess artillery is absolutely useless. The AI will dodge it all day without fail. So don't even bother with that thing. It's very, very much a slog. You can win and you can get to a powerful state, but it's a lot of work. Play Count Noctilus, raid the Elves, raid everyone around you, and enjoy the fact that your starting location is relatively safe as far as any of these are.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine.
The good news about Vampire Counts is that they only have one DLC and it's very much under not necessary. Just take Isabella Van Karstein, start with Vlad being very powerful, and then from there, just spam your heroes. She buffs heroes, and in general, as Vampire Counts, you're going to want to use your heroes and you're going to want to use your lords. Expand outwards, take control of the Empire, try to avoid fighting Dwarfs if you can, because you don't really want that land anyways, and just generally try to get a lot of Confederation. Your power, as Vampire Count, is not in your trash infantry. They exist to screen and bog people down while your lords and heroes are doing the heavy lifting. Use your powerful magic and melee abilities, and you should have a very easy time with them. Insert your complaint about the end times here. Assuming you have bought the Champions of Chaos DLC like I recommended, you will have access to 4 different varieties of Satan, or you will have access to Be'lakor. My recommendation in terms of raw power is to take Be'lakor and conquer the world. If you do not own the Champions of Chaos DLC, you can still play as Be'lakor. Good news. You just will have access to slightly less units. Buying the original Warriors of Chaos DLC will only give you access to those free original lords, Archeon, Kolek, and Sigvald, and will not give you any additional units, and I do not recommend it. Now, if you don't want to buy that, or you just want a bit more of a flavor win, you could also get the actual Warriors of Chaos DLC from Warhammer 1 and have a great time with Archeon. Here's the thing though, the faction is very overpowered and will not be a challenge for you. Every single one of your dark fortresses are very easy to defend. From then, just have a great time sweeping the world. Stay up north, as that's where all of your dark fortresses are, and don't bother wandering all the way down to Africa. There is not much to find there. You'll have a very easy time. There's not really much advice to do. You are a very broken faction. As a kid, I used to be horrified by the trees in Lord of the Rings 2, so it seems only fair that I hate this faction. Here's the thing about Wood Elves. If you own the Clan Molders DLC, you'll have a relatively good time with the Sisters of Twilight. Just spam the hawks with archers and generally make sure to use that missile to your benefit. You start surrounded by people who might not necessarily like you, but like any Wood Elf faction, you have a lot of defensive benefits. Just play tall, and then when you can access to teleportation, go move over to Bretonnia and conquer the rest of the Wood of Ages. Assuming you do not like Skaven, and you don't necessarily want to get that DLC, you are left with the option of getting the Wood Elf DLC proper. In that case, you have a much simpler time. Just take Orion, declare war on everyone around you, and crush them on the weight of your infinite free armies. But my recommendation is to get the DLC that offers you something else, because you will not want to play Wood Elves more than once. They are a very boring campaign, and it plays the same every single time. If you've made it this far in the video, I just want to say thank you so much. This is my first full video, and it means the world to me that you've watched it. I intend to make so many more guides in the coming weeks, so please like, subscribe, and all those things. It would mean the world. Thank you so much.